Welcome to another G4 Guitar Teacher Hangout. My name is David Hart, and what I'm going to do is cover a topic where just so you know, if you've not seen one of these before, what I do is I begin by spending a little bit of time on talking about a topic just to kind of share some ideas and knowledge with you based on what I think are common problems that teachers have and feedback from our members. And then what I'm going to do is do a Q&A with the guys here. So they can ask questions about the topic first, and if they haven't got any questions on the topic, or once we exhaust that, then we can go into questions that they have. So here you go. So the topic today is called 3 warning signs your student is about to quit. And what I've done here is not gone for the usual obvious ones that we've talked about quite a lot. Things like when a student's not filling in a practice log, that's a sign that they're probably not going to continue. You know, they're late, they're not turning up. They're the kind of more obvious ones that we have covered before. So like I said, this time what I'm going to do is pick kind of 3 subtle, and if I extended that topic, it would be 3 subtle warning signs that your student's about to quit. So number 1 is that they create distractions. And we can see this within young children, that is children who with a child, especially under 12 and so forth. It's very obvious that when they don't want to do the work, or they feel a little bit lacking confidence or whatever, so they do distractions. So they might say things like, did you hear about that thing on the news, or did you see that show, or talk about something it's completely nothing to do with your guitar lessons. And if you've ever spent any time with little kids, you'll see that they'll do a lot. They'll just start talking about something that's randomly. And when you, as a guitar teacher, when you're doing that, and I've seen guitar teachers who are in situations, they're kind of getting frustrated by the child keep talking about these things that have nothing to do with the guitar lesson. But a lot of the time it's because they're nervous, and they don't really want to be put under pressure to do whatever it is you're asking them to do, so they cause a distraction. So it's obvious in children, and when you see that, you want to be aware of it. Know that it's normal with children, so it's not a big problem. But if you see that it's happening a lot, then there's probably a confidence issue there within the student. But with adults, it's more subtle, and their distractions might be just little things where they're sort of seem a bit preoccupied, or they try and shift you, asking about a song that they might want to learn, or just little things like that, which aren't the obvious distractions that kids have. So what's the solution? The main thing is don't let them get off track. So often when they do this, if they work, because they do work a lot of the time, they're very good at it. Especially the more that they do it, the better they get at it. And if you just allow it to happen, and this, as a teacher, sometimes we can get in these sort of situations where we don't want the parent to think that we're not being nice to their child, so we kind of let the child talk. We don't want to just say stop talking and do what I tell you to do. We know that the parent's going to think, oh, this guy's a bit scary, so we kind of play nice, but at the same time in our head we're thinking, come on, we're not doing anything here. 10 minutes we've been talking about these things that have nothing to do with the guitar. So what you need to do is kind of be firm, don't let them get off track, but also be kind of kind, be nice about it. You don't have to be harsh about it. So to give you an idea, the kind of things that I would do is, let's just say they start talking about something at school. Oh, today we did this whatever blah 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 at school, and I say, hang on, Jack, we'll get to that. I'm gonna get you to tell me about that soon. But right now, I want you to do this exercise for me. Let's go. Okay, 1, 2, and I have cues where I would cue in the thing, and obviously with my daughter, she does it all the time, and all I do is go 1, 2, 3, oh, blah, 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 and so she's straight into it. And if you do that all the time, they do become very strong cues, and you will find that they will go from whatever they're talking about to actually concentrating on what it is, because they don't want to miss out on the start. It's like you're saying ready, set, go every time you count. So just also realize that it is a confidence issue. So if you can build up their confidence at the same time by telling them that things like that they can do this exercise, providing that you know that they can do it. If it's too hard for them, then obviously you need to find something easier. But building their confidence and just saying things that get them back on the confidence track. So in other words, hang on, Jack, we've got to do that. We're going to do this exercise. You know what? Last week you did this really well. You blew me away how well you did it last week. So what I want to do is just do it again. Let's just start slowly, really slow today, and let's give it a go. All right, here we go. 1, 2. So what I do is I jump straight back into it, and I do it in a positive way, and I tell Jack we're going to talk about those other things later, and then what I do is I create a little bit of time. What I do is almost use it as a reward. Let's do this exercise, and then we'll take a brief, 10, 15 seconds, and you can quickly tell me about your story. And by that time, the story, what they tend to do is that they summarize the story a little bit more. They don't sort of labor it so much because it's no longer a distraction. They're not looking for the distraction. What they're doing is, oh, well, yeah, at school today we did this. Great, excellent. That sounds like you had a great day. All right, we better jump into the next exercise. Let's go. So I keep the momentum going, and I keep it positive the whole time. And I'm just trying to give you this idea of how I do it so you can see. Always being positive with them, building confidence, and not letting them get off track. So they're the main things with when you see them creating distraction. If you don't do that, if you let this get out of hand, you will lose the student. And that's where I say it's a subtle warning sign that your student's about to quit because their confidence is dropping. So the second one here is they become forgetful or disorganized, and you'll see this, a lot in, sometimes it's in adults, it's common amongst adults, and it's also parents. They'll say, oh, we forgot the guitar this week, or we forgot this, or his book's not here, or whatever. So you start to see this kind of disorganization going on, and you might just think that they're a disorganized person, and that's the assumption that we often make. But it's amazing how people are different in different situations, and I'm not saying there aren't some cases of people who are badly organized, but the reality is most people are organized in the things that are important to them. They make sure they've got it together for what matters to them. And I think I made this point in the group not long ago about how, coming from Australia to Japan and moving, I had to be really organized. I had to make sure everything, whereas normally if I get in the car and go somewhere, even if it's just a flight from Cairns to Sydney or whatever, something like that, I don't have to worry so much. If I forget something, it's no big deal. I'll be back home in a few days. So I know the important things I got to take, but it's not such a big deal. Whereas when I moved, I had to make sure I did everything for the move to go smoothly. So when people are forgetful or disorganized, then you really need to look at it at what it is. So what's happening is that they're losing interest, or they didn't have enough interest there in the first place. But in most cases, when they started guitar or they wanted to do guitar, they did have the interest, they did have the inspiration and the motivation to learn, and the disorganization and the forgetfulness is just really them kind of signing off on it and just saying, this is all too much, I've got too much else to do, it's not really that important to me. What you need to do if you want the solution to this one is to get them back to that place where they're inspired. And it's amazing how, again, things can change within a person or within yourself even. You can get yourself really inspired about something else becomes more important to you based on your circumstances, whatever is going on in your life. So if you want to reach your goals and you want your students to reach the goals, and it's really the same thing, is that you want to be able to know what it is that inspires you or inspires your student. What are the things you need to talk about? And I've done this with many students over the years, where I will find out what it is. What are the things that really get them going? And you might just mention a band, you might play a little bit of a song, you might sort of talk about what their dreams and goals are, what it means to them, get back to the reason why they originally started. And that's where the 5-week intro is really important for that, because you get to know the student and what they're all about. So that's a forgetful, disorganized. That's the second sign that you have a student who is probably going to drop out sometime soon. So the third one is that they talk about how busy they are. So this is a classic, and I left it to last because it's one that we often believe. And I was guilty of it, especially, go back to those early days. I was very guilty of believing what people said. I just thought people said what was true. I didn't realize that they were making up stories, as they often do. But the truth is that when people say that they're busy to you, it's kind of like the little code for I'm going to be quitting soon because I don't really want to do it anymore. So I'm just telling you now that I'm really busy. So when it comes to me quitting, you're already I'm preparing you for what's coming. So that way they and I've said it so many times. Yeah, like again, I go back to those early days, and I remember how often it happened, where you'd be at sort of a point, and the student would say, "Look, oh, sorry, I've been really busy this week. It's been a crazy week. I got this on, I got that on, and bang." And then the next week they ring you and say, "Look, I'm going to have to stop lessons because things have just gotten out of hand here, too crazy. I'll get back to you as soon as things quieten down." And so, as soon as you see any of those that early sign of busyness, what you want to do is really take it head on and talk to them about it. Don't just say, "Oh, okay, no worries. I hope things are okay, and this next week you have a better week." Don't just let it sort of slide. Say, "All right, let's talk about that because I know you really want to do guitar. I know this is important to you. It was only 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, how many weeks ago that you were all fired up to learn guitar, and here you are. It's getting away from you. So, I understand. I really do. I understand what it's like to be busy. So acknowledge them and make it clear that you're not sort of saying you're not busy. Don't ever do that. Just simply acknowledge that they're busy, and then just say, okay, well, let's see what we can do. See if we can work out a bit of a plan. And what you want to do is again recognize that it's a confidence issue. So it's not that they're busy. They may even think they're busy, but it's not that they're busy. What it is that they're preparing you for their departure, and they're giving you the excuse ahead of time just to kind of get you ready for it, and rather than just say, "Hey, I don't want to do guitar anymore. Thanks anyway," because most students won't do that. Some will, but most students won't do that because they feel it's confronting. They feel it may be offensive to you, or they feel you're going to talk them out of it. So what they're trying to do is just give you an excuse that you can't come back on, which is you can't say, "Hey, you're not that busy." They are. If they say they're busy, then that's their reason, and you've got to go with it. So just to sort of sum up on those, number one was that they create distractions, and so to try and be mindful of those distractions and to take them head on. Remember, the solution was not to let them off, not to get off track, and to keep them doing the things that you need them to do and build their confidence. All confidence is really in everything that we talk about. So even though I sort of put it in here, I'm really reiterating it because it's always there. Confidence is nearly always the issue, the underlying issue when students want to quit or are not confident. That they're not wanting to continue. So number two is they become forgetful or disorganized. So again, when you see that, and the solution is to get back to what originally inspired them to want to learn guitar. And the third was that they talk about being too busy, which we just covered. All right, so I'll just jump to you guys. Have you guys got any questions on that? Any scenarios, any stories you want to share in that respect? If so, just turn your mic off. The first one that goes off, I'll let speak. Anyone? Looks like you're all good on that. Ben.
Yeah. What happened recently, David? Through me years of teaching, I have, as you say, you see it a mile off, don't you? I had a student who did a 5-week intro. Last 2 weeks she's been ill. I'm not gonna, tell her she's a liar and she's not ill. 2 different illnesses, and then yesterday she said, "Oh, listen, I can't make the group on a Wednesday night. It doesn't fit in. Is there anything we can do?" So she's left it open. I can give her a call today, have a chat to her. At least she said, "Is there anything we can do?" rather than "I'm stopping." But it was interesting how I thought you can't be that ill with 2 completely different illnesses that happen to knock you out where you can't get here on 2 separate Wednesday evenings.
Yeah.
What's probably happened with her is that the last couple of weeks she might have been feeling a bit under the weather, but also the main reason was the time didn't fit in, but she didn't feel comfortable enough to say the time doesn't fit in.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting because sometimes it could be that they're ill, but you know what I mean? You get a sense, and that's what you've got. You've got this sense, even though you're kind of logically playing it out. You're saying, well, if I'm going to get sick from 2 different things 2 weeks in a row, it's unusual, but it could happen. There are people who definitely would happen, but you just had that feeling. Something's not right here, and that's more what you got to go with, that gut instinct. Yeah. So what are you going to do? You're going to bring her in to do a
Yeah, well, I'm going to give her a call. Give her a call today, find out, and just say, because I've not seen you for 2 weeks, and I wouldn't normally do it, but just say to her, I need, because she's an adult, so I need to see you before we organise our next group session, because I've got to find out where you're at and where we can fit you in. Then once I get her in face to face, I can find out a bit more and see where she's at. You never know; she may well have practiced, because she was for the 5 weeks she's practicing loads. So if she's got a full practice log for the last week's 2 weeks that she's missed, I'll take
Yeah.
it on Facebook, fit her in, where we can. If not, we know there's a bigger issue there.
Yeah, cool, cool. And so sometimes with these situations, and I talk about sticking to your policies, but we have to also recognize that some students, they need a little bit more reassurance. They need, so some students, it's worth giving. Even though I have my policies, this is the policy, and we're trying to get them to understand the policies and not let them get around the policies just because it suits them and it's convenient to them. But when I see that it's a confidence issue, that maybe they're a bit nervous about the group, or maybe they don't feel that they're good enough for the group for whatever reason, I will do another private lesson with them just to kind of reassure them, because I see that as part of my job was, well, I didn't do enough to get them ready for the group, so I'm going to give them another private lesson, because that
Yeah.
may be what's going on here. She may be nervous about joining a group.
Yeah, bear in mind that obviously we'd finished the 5th intro lesson before Christmas, 2 week break, 1st of January, she paid. So she's
Wow.
paid for January and I haven't seen her yet. So obviously the confidence thing isn't as big a deal for her not to want to commit.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy to see her and find out and it might be completely genuine. We'll see.
Yeah, and again, go with your gut feeling. If you feel that she is genuine, and you do, having this extra lesson is going to help, then yeah, definitely go with it. And that I think, despite all the things that we say and discuss and policies and all this, at the end of the day, we need to be flexible. We can't just be hard and cold. When unless you're people are beating the door down, unless you're, the next big thing where you've got millions of people wanting to sort of get into your lessons. You can't afford to do it anyway. But at the same time, you want to do the right thing, because looking after you, it's like you guys. I'm not going to sort of say, hey, you've already had a meeting with me this week, don't call me again. I'm available here whenever you want me. But I know that you guys are also respectful, and that you come to me when you need things. You don't come to me just because you're bored or you want to waste my time. So it's important to understand who are your good clients, and your good clients are the ones that you are willing to do whatever it takes. So cool.
Okay.
All right. All right. So unless anyone's has got a question, it's open Q&A. So I might start with Trevor. Trevor, do you want to ask a question, or have you got a topic that you want to cover today?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm closer to you now, Trevor. I'm in Japan, so.
Yes, yeah, only a few thousand miles away now, a few more thousand miles. Yes. I guess, well, I brought it up on the Facebook page actually yesterday, but it'd be maybe interesting just to ask the people who are on here now what experiences they're having with getting conversions from inquiries at the moment, because it just does seem to have been really uphill, with a lot of people kind of expressing an interest in, oh yes, I'm really keen and so on, but not actually wanting to pay up and book for lessons. And I'm just wondering if it is a seasonal thing, if other people are having the same experiences at the moment.
Well, let's see. Ben Al-Qaidi, have you had any of this in your case?
My inquiries are pretty much split into exact extremes in January. Either they book in straight away, or I get an email, I send a response, I wait a few days, I send another response, I wait a few days, I send another response, and I give up. So if I've talked to them, most of the time they've booked in. I've got a couple of people to ring back today, one of which I have to make sure that the parents are also involved, because I spoke to the 18-year-old brother who was booking him in. But when I feel like I can book it in, I think it's booked in every time. It's just a matter of getting a chance to talk to them.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And
Ben,
as long as you
sorry,
get...
keep going. Yep.
Oh, no, sorry, that was it.
Okay, cool. Ben Messenger, have you had any issues at all?
Yeah, same as Same as Ben, really. If I can get them on the phone, and if I can get them to pay by PayPal over the phone, I've personally gone strictly down that route because I've had enough of sending. Gets frustrating sending confirmation emails and thinking that space is booked, and then 4 or 5 days later getting no response. And you know, without being too negative, you know what the response is going to be for whatever reason. They're not as keen as they were, 4 or 5 days ago, and they probably aren't going to end up booking in. So that space that you've held is now a gap again. So
Yeah.
I'm obviously cutting that off by taking payments over the phone or nothing. But also, yeah, I'm finding a few. I think one of the guys on Facebook mentioned tire kickers, and I'm finding a few of those mainly on Facebook. Funnily enough, generally the phone calls are converting absolutely fine. It's the Facebook inquiries where I think it's easier for people to ask questions on Facebook from behind a keyboard and not feel like they're wasting your time necessarily.
Yeah, 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 and I think also on online things like Facebook and so forth, there's a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
I mean, you sit there and look at your own Facebook. How many times does something come up that is asking for your attention? So someone could sort of see your message, they're sort of reading your message, and then bang, your best friend makes a joke or tells you they're in town or whatever, and you're off that, and then you've forgotten all about that guitar lesson you're inquiring about. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Something that I'll just share was that when I worked in retail sales, I did for my parents and that, but I got into kind of what you call serious retail selling. When I was about 20, 21, and I worked for a company in Australia, and they were kind of the biggest retailer in Australia, and I went to, and I'm not boasting here, but I went to #1 in the company, but the way that I did it was actually an English guy who I learnt from, because he was #1 in the company when I joined, and I just happened to be lucky enough to work under him. I already had plenty of sales experience through my family, my stepfather especially. He was very good, but this particular guy, it was selling we call it consumer electrics, so basically things like stereos and TVs and whatever. Mostly what I was selling was hi-fi gear, and anyway, this English guy, he mentored me at that point, and what I basically learned from him was that if you don't get the sale today, forget it. You haven't got it. The sale will walk, and it was almost like a standard joke with a new kind of trainee salesperson would come in, and they would go, "Oh, that guy's going to come back tomorrow, and he's going to spend thousands of dollars," and everyone would laugh. Yeah, right. Forget about it. And it was just the standard thing, because we knew once a person walked out the door, you would never see them again. And of course, occasionally people came back, but the majority of people, once they walk, because it's a purchase and it's one that they wanted in the moment, but other things happen, and all sorts of things happen, and this is pre-internet, by the way, so there was plenty of distractions at any time in history. And so really what I learned, and the reason I became #1 in that particular company, was because I realized that when someone walked, the sale was gone. And so what I did was I would do whatever I could to get them to buy there and then, to get them to pull the credit card out. And if you take that approach, and this is where Emma, her comment today, part of where she's coming from, she also had a sales background in the UK. She was mentored by a guy there as well. I think she was working in a hardware store or something like that. But she already came to me with good sales skills, but then we actually worked it on it for the music lessons. But Emma's thing was that she didn't let them go. She would if they sort of said, okay, I'll think about it, or I got to talk to the other half or whatever, she would start talking to them again. So and where Trevor used the example today, which is a common one, I've talked about this before, where they say, oh, I need to talk to my partner, or I need to check with someone else. All that is a loss of it's not a loss, but it's not enough trust. They don't trust you enough yet, so they're using it as an excuse. I mean, very few people have to go and consult someone else to spend $100. There are very few people in the world who, in our worlds anyway, in the Western world, who need to consult somebody else to spend $100. Generally, they can do it. but also when they're given a kind of a money back guarantee and all the rest of it. Look, if it doesn't work out, if your partner says that time's ain't good or we don't want it, then just give me a call back and we'll refund your money straight away. Giving them that reassurance is sort of takes it one step further. So, but if you understand that it's a trust issue and what you're going to, and it's going to happen. It happens to me. It happens to everybody. You're not going to always build enough trust in that initial 5 minutes or 10 minutes of a phone call. So sometimes you've got to sort of bring them back into the call. So what can happen at that point is, and it's a standard response that if you've done the training with Emma, she's probably been through it with you, and I've got it as well. But when someone gets to that point where they say, I just need to check with someone else, just be agreeable. Don't say, oh, but don't do any of that. Just simply say, okay, yeah, no, that's fine. But just before you go, can I just ask you one more question? And that leads them back in. So if you do that every time, if you make that your habit, just before you go, just ask you one more question. So say, yeah, that's cool, that's fine. Go and check with your partner, whatever, and then say, can I just ask you one more question? And what you want to do is, as you're having that initial conversation with them and you're doing the qualifying of the actual sales process, you should be taking notes and you should be thinking, okay, what are the triggers for this person? What are the things what are the reasons they want to learn guitar, or they want their child to learn guitar? What are the things? So it might be that I'm talking to you, Trevor, and you're asking about my guitar lessons and what do I teach and how do I do it and blah, blah, and I already know that you're not a beginner, you're an advanced guitar player, but I've already established that you love Kiss and you've got various influences. But what I'll do is that I'll sort of just before you go, I'll just ask you one more question. Was there a particular Kiss song that you wanted to learn, or were there any Kiss songs? Just so I know, just so when you come back, I can sort of make sure that I've got some of those on hand when I know what your influences are, and that gets you talking again and talking about Kiss and talking about something that you're interested in. And once I start talking about things that you're interested in, then the trust builds again. And the reason that works, the psychology behind it, and it's manipulative. And that's the thing about persuasion. Persuasion it's two sides to it. It's the dark side and the light side, if you like. The dark side, you can manipulate people with it and get them to do things that you shouldn't get them to do, basically. But the idea is that when I say it's manipulative, what you can do is that once someone starts talking about something that they know and like and are interested in and feel good about, they start to feel good about you. They create an association the same with you. So if you talk, that's where when you come together with someone that you've never met before and you have a common friend or someone once you start talking about that person, and that makes the other person feel more relaxed, and you can try that. You'll see it where you'll meet someone and there's a common connection there, and that's why we do small talk and we try and find common ground, because once we start talking about the same thing and we agree on something, then we start to feel a bit more relaxed and we like each other more. But if you haven't done any of that, you haven't established enough of that and found that common ground, if it's all just been cold business, then it's very easy for them to say, okay, well, thank you, I need to check with someone else. In other words, I don't feel enough trust here yet. Leave it with me. I might come back to you, I might not. Does that make sense, Trevor?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was weird though, because I mean, I felt like I'd sort of got quite a good rapport going with her, and it felt like, normally up until now the run I've had has been pretty good, and I sort of felt like, I think I'm kind of getting the hang on this. And then she just went cold on it, and I kind of wondered, is it just maybe that she's thinking, well, actually, big credit card bill and everything, maybe we'll.
I think given your track record and the fact that you do have a very high success rate, it's probably just a statistic. You're not going to get 100%. You're going to get, every now and again, you're going to get someone who you're just not going to get there. Does that, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter how nice and trusting and all the rest of it. This is just a person who they need a lot. They need more. There's just it's like I said, it's a statistic. I'm not going to convince everyone, and I've been doing this for a long time, and there are people that are just, they're not going to trust me. Doesn't matter what I do. So. Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't be concerned, Trevor, if you can see that you're doing really well, but you kind of what you were kind of suggesting was that you're getting a lot of it recently. Is that right?
Well, it just seems to have been a run
When you say a
of
run, how many are we
inquiries.
talking about?
Well, to be honest, it's been a bit quiet anyway, which I was kind of hoping to be getting more inquiries this month because I've done quite a lot of flyering leading up to Christmas. So it's been like kind of 3 or 4 inquiries, some of them just email inquiries,
Yeah.
and yeah, just not really. Don't think I've had any that have actually booked up so far. I think I might have had one actually, and that's about it.
So
So
how many? So this is really important, and I'll kind of press you on this. You don't need to
mm,
give me the numbers, but it's really
no,
important that you keep the accurate numbers. So
right,
we don't want the kind of 3 or 4. What we want is we did 4. We had 4 calls, and out of those 4 calls, one of them enrolled and paid. One of them said that they'll get back to me, so maybe they will still. I still feel that there's a chance with that one. The other two
mm,
said that they would turn up and cancelled at the last minute. So therefore. So when you start to do that and you look at the actual numbers, the true numbers,
yeah,
then you realize that because we're very emotional creatures, humans, and we're also it's called the recency bias, and that's where what we do is that we take recent events and we expand them. We make out like it's like when a terrorist act happens. We think the whole world is terrorists are everywhere, but it's something that's happened recently. We feel that it's something that is happening a lot, but in fact, when you look at it over the last year, 5 years, 10 years, it's not a big deal. Um, and that's where you got to kind of look at it. You got to, and that's when you take the statistical numbers and you really look at it properly. You'll see, it may be a problem. You might see, wow, this is a problem. It's in the last 3 months or the last 2 months, it's really spiked. But if you look at it over, say, a year or 2 years, whatever, what's more likely to happen, and there's another term for it, regression to the mean, and that is where you'll look at it and you'll realize that, hey, I've had a really good run. Things have been great over the last 3 or 4 months, and now I've had a little bit of a bad run, but actually I'm still doing well. It's kind of just come back to the average, or it's moved more towards the average. You see this with sports players all the time, where they have they have like a hot run, and then they have a couple of bad games, but it kind of brings them down. It's that, like you say, the regression to the mean, brings them back to where they tend to sit as a statistic. All right. Any
right.
questions on that, Trevor?
No. I mean, that's all pretty straightforward. I mean, I do keep all the inquiries on the little, slips that the inquiry sort of checklist things. So I
Yeah.
have them all on the fridge. So I just need to actually go back to those and kind of go through them and see, okay, well, how many you've actually done and how many you've converted, and just kind of do a bit more analysis on it.
Yeah. Yeah. We see this in every now and again a teacher will say, I think one of the guys said it during the week, oh man, I've had so many students drop out recently, but of course the time of the year has an effect on that, but often that same teacher had a record sign up in the last month. And so what they're really doing is just getting the same percentage of dropouts that they would normally get, or maybe a little bit higher because of the time of year. But because they've had more enrollments, it seems like more dropouts. But in fact, the percentage is still the same. If you sign up, 5 students in a month and you lose one of them, that's 20% loss. But if you sign up 20 students and lose 4, still it's 20%. But it feels more. It feels, wow, I just lost 4 students in one day. That's or 1 week.
Right.
So yeah, it's just the way our mind plays tricks on us, and that's why it's important. And we go the other way as well. We exaggerate. We have a good month, and then we start deciding on how we're going to spend that money. We start thinking about that new sports car we're going to buy because we enrolled 20 students this month, when in fact our average is 10. But we just this is just a big month, where every other month, it's like 5 or 6. This 20 month has kind of brought it back into the average of 10. So it goes both ways.
Sure.
Cool. All right. So questions. Anyone got a question? We're doing well for time. So,
David, I know we've gone off it a little bit now, but would you mind elaborating on the second of our 3 dropout hints? Because the first one, the kind of chatting to distract you, I'm familiar with that. I've forgotten what the third one is off the top of my head, but I was familiar with the third one. That sounded familiar. But the second one,
they become forgetful or disorganized. Yep. So
I thought that was the third one. I thought the second one was something to do with their inspiration and why they started.
Okay, I'll say all 3, and then you can tell me which one. First one, yeah, they create distractions. Second one, they become forgetful or disorganized. Number 3 is they talk about how busy they are.
Yeah, it must have been while you were talking about the second one, because yeah, forgetful and distracted. Yeah, I have noticed that in a couple of students.
Yeah.
But I was trying to connect it to the inspiration thing, and I must have just caught that word and forgot about what the rest of it was.
Yeah. The inspiration is the solution. So yeah, get them back to being inspired. Really push it back up to a top priority, because people are very organized around their things that are important to them.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep. And I find it, same with G4 teachers, the ones that come to me and say, I've been so busy, or there's been a lot going on, or I'm really sorry, I forgot this or that or whatever. That I know that there's subtle signs that that their confidence is not there. That things are, and it doesn't mean that they're. And it's important to understand this. It doesn't mean that they're a person who lacks confidence or lacks self-esteem, or it's not a kind of an issue where they need help from a psychologist. When we talk about confidence, it's confidence in their ability to do whatever it is. Because you can take someone who can be a top CEO or top sports player or this or that, and they're really good at whatever they do, and they come to learn guitar and they crumble. They just you can see that they don't have the confidence to do guitar. It doesn't mean they're not a confident person. So it's the same within G4. You can be you're a confident person, everything's fine, but you just around certain issues to do, whether it be sales or marketing or even the teaching, there are certain issues that you're not as confident about. So yeah, cool. Any other questions? And on any topics, it doesn't have to be just this. Any topics you like, Ben?
Yeah, quite a big one, David, for me. Just looking through my stats, and over 50% of my students are adults. A, is it a problem? And B, if it is, how do you suggest, knowing me doing the school fairs and stuff like that, how do you suggest I bring that average, that number down, so I've got more kids to work with?
I don't think it's a problem. I think it's just from where I came from and what I just looking at my own success story, if you like, it was more based around kids, and that was that's the strategy that worked for me. As far as working with adults, there's no reason why you can't be very successful with adults. But really the question, if I throw it back onto you, do you feel there's any problem with it?
It's just what I found over time. I've almost not regressed in a bad way, but most of my students, when I was teaching privately for the music school, were adults. So clearly, I know I've for whatever reason I'm better at teaching adults, or I feel more comfortable at teaching adults, or maybe I'm missing something teaching the kids. Having said that, since I've done G4, I find kids just so much more easier to teach. They fit into the program. There's no issue with groups. Once you convince mum and dad, the kids are on board. They tend to progress quicker, get more out of it. So obviously, I'd prefer to have 100% of children between the age of 7 years old and 11, 12 years old. They seem to be I've got some great adult students, don't get me wrong, but my best students in terms of they just get on with it. They turn up, they practice.
Yeah. And you can build a school, I think, more with kids, because most adults who are doing it more kind of as a casual hobby, and as soon as something else comes along, they tend to.
Without again sounding negative, I'm preempting that I'm going to have to replace all these adults every 12, 18 months or so, as history has shown. Whereas the kids, some don't get me wrong, some adults, I've had adult students that stayed with me for 5, 6, 10 years, but the majority, like you say, something happens, and sometimes it's genuine, it's new job or new baby or whatever it might be, and that tends to be around the sort of 18-month mark in some cases. So it's the idea of, I don't want to be having to constantly replace students all the time. I want to be able to comfortably say, he's going to stick at it for 3 years, or he's going to be at it for 4 years, whatever. Which with the kids, you can pretty much do that.
Yeah, yeah. And kids, you go back to your own childhood, you know, you kind of grow, you know, kind of a sense of affection for your teacher as well. You know, there's that you have a different bond. You know, an adult doesn't have that. They might think you're a nice guy, and but they're not going to shed any tears if you disappear tomorrow. Whereas, you know, the kids, they do. I've had it. I've seen it. I've had quite a few students who have literally cried when I've left. They've been so upset, and so there's a stronger, I think, a stronger emotional bond with kids, and that's why, yeah, they're going to be around longer. You're going to be able to nurture them more into becoming, you know, good students. And you know, one of the things that I really like with the guitar, teaching them guitar, is not just the idea that they can play guitar. It's teaching them how to be a good student, how to learn, and you can apply it to anything. It doesn't have to be guitar. How you can be successful at anything. And I think that parents, they really got that. They realized, you know, parents don't want to openly, and most, you know, most people are like this, they don't want to openly send their child to a personal development, Tony Robbins style, you know, seminar for their 7-year-old, but they still want their child to be inspired by someone who's a good role model, a good teacher. And so, you know, where I see Robbins as someone who kind of, in many respects, you know, Robbins and Oprahs and these kind of people, they're really, their audience are adults who, you know, feel that their childhood didn't go quite as well as they thought it would. You know, I'm not saying he's totally like that. He's got a lot of good stuff, and I really like Robbins. But at the same time, I think he's trying to fix a lot of people, you know, when they become adults. Whereas, you know, my sort of idea is that let's just start with the innocent child, and go from there. And there's nothing to fix. It's just a matter of, you know, that's where I really like Carol Dweck, you know, mindset and that whole approach. Give them a good start. So yeah, kids. That's why I did kids.
Yeah. So what? Knowing, obviously, you know my marketing with the fairs, and you know I've got the rock star kid all over my signs, all over my flyers. What can you suggest? Because clearly it's marketing. I'm looking at my my stats here, and again, you talked about the power of the recent. But having said that, the last 14 people I've booked in, including Christmas vouchers, have been adults.
Okay, cool. And look, it might be
in since November, since beginning of November.
Okay. So do you think there's a fair population of kids where you live? Is it normal? Is there anywhere else?
I mean, generally, the immediate area is an aging population, you know, 65 plus. But obviously, you go literally a mile or two outside of that, and you're into your standard areas. Lots of schools. You know, it's a fairly big town nearby. We're not quite close to Manchester in terms of cities, but Stockport's a fairly large town. I actually live on the outskirts of it. So there's plenty of high schools, plenty of primary schools, and some of the big schools, and some of these schools have got 1,500, 2,000 kids there, so they are big, good-sized schools.
Okay.
So a little bit of a loss, you know.
Okay, so let's bring it back to you, okay? And how would you perceive yourself if you were a child? How would you see yourself? Tell me how you would describe yourself.
As a teacher, you mean?
As a person, just as a, you know, how would, if you were a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, and I was saying, so what's Ben like? What would you say?
Well, certainly if you've met me from a teaching point of view, I'm, you know, the usual sort of friendly, jovial, have some fun, you know, firm when I need to be. Like I said, I feel like actually running the lessons is easier with kids because I feel like I've got it down to a certain degree, you know.
Yeah. And and I think we all know, everyone in the group recognizes that you've got a good sense of humor. You know, you're the first one to make a joke when something comes up. So, you know, and you know, I'd be right there with you, except I have to be careful. You know, I don't want to offend anyone. You don't have to worry so much because you're the client more so than the. But you know, if you and I are at a pub, I'm sure we'd we'd go head to head on having a good time. You know, as far as humour is concerned. But you, so all I can, and I know that you've got that. So without actually seeing you in action, I'm not really sure what I would suggest for you to do or change, because there are certain things that you can do with kids, and not just the kids, but the adults, the parents, sorry, of the kids, that you can do that will really impress them. And in other words, that they will realize you're a special kind of teacher. You're not the average kind of teacher. And what they really want more than anything from you, and I've sort of harped on this a little bit recently, and I know you guys are kind of getting it to a degree, but it might be something that takes a little while to really understand, and that is the whole idea of understanding that a parent wants a role model, that they want someone who they would like their child to be when they grow up. And what they want their child to do is, they want, first of all, number one is that if you ask any parent what they want their child to be when they grow up, is to be happy. So if you come across as a person who's happy, really enjoying your life, loves what you do, then that's going to get you a lot of points. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you love kids, because I think we all know this, one of the things that women admire most about men, or find attractive about men, is the fact that they're good with kids. There's nothing more off-turning for a woman, for a guy who hates kids. So if you're not good with kids, and so, you know, and I do it naturally, but the thing is that whenever I'm around kids, parents of kids, I actually acknowledge the kids first before the parents. I go straight to the kids. Hey, how are you, mate? How's things? What's that you've got there? You know, and it's always, you know, big eyes, big words, and I have a joke, and you know, depending on who they are, sometimes I'll tickle the kid if I know the parents well enough, and you know, if they're kind of very young, I'll play peekaboo and all that sort of thing. So what you really want to do, it's not that you put on this kind of fake show and not teach them anything. The idea is you're obviously there to teach them how to play guitar, but if you can really show that side of you, because I think most people have got it, but if you can show that side of you, that you really do like kids and you really love being around kids and teaching kids, and yeah, does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess from a practical point of view, what I'm getting is that I'm not getting those people through the door in the first place.
Okay.
That's
here's the thing.
A little concerning.
Okay, here's the thing. So, how many students have you got now?
A bit of a dip before Christmas, so 42 subscribed, and another 10 doing intros at the moment.
Okay, good. All right, so you got sort of 50 odd there. So, how many of them, did you say about 50% are in the kid range?
Not including the intros. The intros are all adults. So in terms of subscribers, I've got 21 kids.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So you have the basis there now to get a lot of referrals.
Right. I see where you're going. I see.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what's not happening, is there's not enough talk about you in the community, because when you become that kind of person that the mothers especially are talking about, you're going to see a lot more students calling you and enrolling. So that's kind of where you got to sort of think about, and that's where I talk about targeting and, you know, really zoning in on that, and really, yeah, impressing those mothers as to your. It can be fathers as well, but you know, we all know that we tend to see a lot more mothers, and they're the ones who tend to talk a lot more anyway. So,
cool.
I'd have to say that was part of my secret. You know, I had so many mothers who would confide in me about things. They would tell me, you know, the problems they're having with their kids. So a lot of the mothers, they also have this situation where their husbands are very busy, And so whenever they want to talk about their kids, the husband's too tired and doesn't have enough time. So that and some of them are in strained relationships and all the rest of it. And it's not that you want to take it too far, because you get yourself in trouble if you do. But just by being supportive and being a male, because often they don't have a lot of males in their life, because in the school system, I know it's like that in Australia, and it's definitely like that here in Japan. Most of the school teachers, especially primary school level, the younger kids, it's female. Most of the teachers are female. So the kids, and even then, the mothers don't deal a lot with the school teachers, because they drop the kids off at school and that's it. They're not actually there. So sometimes you can be an important person, someone who's a positive male role model, that they think that may be better than the father. Not that you're competing, so don't get me wrong here. You're not trying to compete against their father. It's in fact, you always talk positive about parents, no matter what the situation. Unless it's something that you need to report to the police, and that's a different story. But we don't get into their personal affairs. We don't go there. But what we do is we do become this exceptional teacher, because there are very few good male role model teachers around, and it's because there aren't a lot of male teachers, and secondly, because even those who are, a lot of them have trouble relating to kids. They're just not good with young kids. It's almost like they're afraid. I don't want to be. I don't know. This kid might bite me or something. I don't know what their problem is, but there's not a lot. And if you become that person, and I had, I know that whenever I was teaching, I had about half a dozen mothers who were very influential, who they were very social, they're connecting, talking to lots of other parents, and they rallied like you wouldn't believe. These people were like, it was like I was running for Prime Minister or something. They were out there rallying for me, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those kind of parents.
I must admit, talking about the signs of it, when I've had certain kids happen this month, where I had 2 kids from the same school on the top practice board. One of the mums came in and said, "Oh, I had no idea that you taught so and so and so and so." And my heart sunk a little bit, thinking they aren't talking about me yet.
Well, that's great. You're recognizing that, and that's So it's now the first step to do anything is awareness. So if you can be aware of that, and and these conversations are great, because what I'm trying to do is just find out, try and share whatever it is that I was doing, because a lot of what I did I wasn't aware of, and I've spoken about this before. They're just things that I developed over many years, or they're just natural for me. But as you start to see the clues, and that's really what you're looking for, each of you are looking for, is to be able to go viral with what it is. Get your students talking about you, and those students who do really like you, who you do have that strong trust with, talk to them. Be straight up with them and say, if you know any other kids at school that want to learn, let them know. I'm here. So don't push it as a sales thing. Just sort of talk to them openly. Because I had the parents who I was kind of closest to. They were like, it was like talking to my mum, or talking to my brother or something. I could say anything to them. It didn't matter. We were like good friends, and it was nice to have a few of those parents on your side who were really they're really out there for you.
Yeah.
Cool. You guys, Ben Arcadi, or Trevor, you've got any other questions that you want to? Ben?
I wouldn't mind.
No, I'm good.
Sorry, go Ben. Go first, Ben, and then I'll go to Trevor. Yep, Ben.
As we spoke kind of 7 hours ago, wouldn't mind some early suggestions for what to do with some of those just kind of step-by-step instruction templates, like handbook style things. So what we talked about today, I think it would be good to just have risk factors, and we've got those 3: add, not turning up for lessons; add, not filling in the practice log. They're the 5 that spring to mind straight away.
Yep.
And then we've got the inquiries one from before. If you could just recap, so I know which recording it's on. For the inquiries, if it's a phone call and you don't speak to them, you get a voicemail. What would be your process, assuming they didn't answer any of them?
Okay, so sorry, start again. So you're saying that if you
I receive a voicemail.
you get an inquiry, you're asking what are the steps. Is that right?
So I ring them back, they don't answer.
Yeah.
What would be the steps for when they don't? Because obviously when they do answer, speak to them and book them in. But when they're not answering, you've got ring them that day, obviously, ring them the next day, and then
Yeah, there is a process on the teacher website, in the sales section.
cool.
Yeah, just check that out. Just have a look in the sales section, and yeah, I off the top of my head, it's like you call the first time, and then leave a message. The second time you call, you don't leave a message, and then you leave it a week and call a third time. If they haven't answered the third time, then what you do is you put them on your email list if you have their email, and if you want, just ring them every now and again for some special offer after that. So.
Cool, sounds good.
Yeah.
Because I just want to put a whiteboard in my office so I can just go, right, here's in the 1 day category, here's in the 2 day category, here's in the week category.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like there's at least one inquiry a month that I just kind of think, should I ring them? Probably not yet. Probably not yet. Oh, too late. Better not ring them. It's been 2 months.
Yeah. And FileMaker Pro, what it's going to do is, for each inquiry, you've got those kind of levels where it starts off as an inquiry, it moves to interested, then it moves to prospect. And the idea is that for an inquiry, it's simply someone who is giving you their details, generally by email, or you've got a phone message, so you haven't actually spoken to them yet, and you regard that as an inquiry. They go to interested that after you've spoken to them on a initial phone call or had an email where they've shown interest, they've come back to you. You can move them to interested, and then if you speak to them, they don't enroll, they don't book, but they actually say, look, I'm really keen, I want to get started, but I'll just need to do this or that. Then you can move them to prospect. So the idea is that when you go back over those inquiries, you start with your prospects. You start with the ones who are most likely to book in. And then once you've been through those, you go to interested. Once you've been through those, you go to inquiry. And if at any stage through those 3 steps, they're either going to be booked in, which means they haven't paid, or they're going to be intro, which means they have paid for the intro, or they're going to go to not interested. So you've really got they're the only paths that they can take.
So is the not interested keeping a list of them anyway?
Yeah, so not interested, you still keep them, and what happens? Yeah, what happens with the non-interested is that they've actually said to you, "I'm not interested anymore." So you don't keep following them up, but you can still put them on that list where you say, "Well, I'm going to include them in Open Day, so I'm going to send them an Open Day email," or put them on a Facebook audience, so that they go out to a custom audience.
Cool. Would it be too short term for this iteration of FileMaker to maybe have a 4th one? So you've got prospect, prospect, interested, inquiry, and then for the people who have got out the other end not being contacted, but not saying that they're not interested, email list? Or will that just be anyone left in inquiry?
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary. I think that, so you're talking about someone who you haven't managed to contact, is that right?
You get the inquiry, for example, the emails that I've been getting in January. You get the email, you send the reply, no answer. 2 days later, send another reply.
Okay, they stay as an inquiry, and what you can do, you can attach notes to them. They're also dated from the time that they go in. So, but if you feel it. Yeah, if you feel you've exhausted it, you've tried your best to get in contact with them, you still haven't got to kind of move them to not interested. It's the same thing. So,
cool.
All right, cool, excellent. That's good. Good question. Trevor, what would you like to say?
No, it's all right. That was good. Thanks. I really covered what I wanted to ask. Thank you.
All right, brilliant. All right, guys. Thank you again for dropping in. I'm enjoying this new format. You guys like the format? Is it all good?
Yeah, it's working. Works for me.
Great, excellent. Yeah, I'll try and keep it to sort of 20 minutes and deliver something. And that way, other guys, when they want to review these videos, and even yourselves, Like I said, we've got 101 of them now, so there's a bunch sort of in the middle where they weren't targeted sort of topics. They were just kind of random Q&As, and I feel this is better because at least we've got one solid topic, and you can go back and sort of listen to them and hear what that topic was about. So cool, we're all good. All right, so I'm just going to stop this broadcast.